like, what am I subscribing to that when I look at that picture, I can't see the joy and the beauty in it, but that my first thought goes to something lacking in me or something that I wasn't doing or something that I was missing, right? So, and in doing so and in sitting with that reflection, I started to see that, wow, there's a lot of subconscious stuff that I'm subscribing to, that I'm holding on to about what it means to parent well or to mother well.
Until next time, I want you to stay weird, and we will catch you on the next episode of the We Ain't Normal show. Welcome to We Ain't Normal. My name is Charmaine Fuller, and I'm an everyday mom sharing how I navigate my ADHD brain. Each week, we share tools, inspiration, and resources to help you uncover how to reclaim your time, energy, and focus. So thanks for hanging out with me today. Now on to our show. Are you looking to shut down some of the open tabs in your head? If you're a professional mom with ADHD like me, girl, I feel you. And this is why I created the Simplify My Life newsletter. The Simplify My Life newsletter shares real life tips, resources, and support to help you shut down the noise and navigate your ADHD life. Trust me, this is the one email you'll be looking forward to opening in your inbox. Join today at the link in the show notes below, and I'll see you there. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this episode of the We Ain't Normal show. Today, I have my girl Albiona with me. We write together with Detroit moms, and I love the message that she gives for parents to parent more presently and with more intention, and not to be as overwhelmed as a parent, like all those things that feel so hard. But I don't know what she does. She makes them look like anybody could do it. So could you please introduce yourself beyond my introduction and let the people know who you are?
Thank you, Charmaine, and thanks so much for having me on. As Charmaine mentioned, my name is Albiona. I am by day a pediatric speech and language pathologist. If you're in or around the Detroit area, I'm the assistant director of the Kaufman Children's Center. And I'm also a parenting coach, and this kind of evolved more organically and kind of accidentally because, as Charmaine mentioned, I started writing on the topic of parenting. Before I landed at Detroit Mom, I was writing and still do write for the Every Mom and Metro Parent and Modern Parent and a handful of other parenting publications and some that are local to Detroit. And I started to get requests if I would do consults or if I would meet with families or meet with a mom, and certainly more so through COVID. So, I just kind of coupled my 20 plus years of experience working with children, both neurotypical and neurodiverse learners, and me being a mom myself. I've been able to kind of wear that parenting hat and be empathetic and understanding toward what it is to be a parent. Like, right, you can always kind of say, oh, what you're supposed to do is this, but then there's the reality of real life, and
right.
That's not always feasible. So I need a plan B, or I need another way to get through. And so I think for me, what I wanted to bring to this space was sort of this middle that I just felt was lacking. So when I was beginning to just write on the topic of parenting, and I really just started off wanting to write a book, I started to see that the information out there either felt too heavy and prescriptive, and it almost felt judgy in a lot of ways, and it didn't feel inclusive in that it was taking into account a lot of different parenting situations. And then on the opposite side of that was like the other camp, which felt like very passive and lots of mantras, and and I think that's really important. I'm a mantra girl. I like it. But at the end of the day, if you're like knee deep in tantrums and trying to figure out how to help your child who's really struggling and every day feels overwhelming, like saying a mantra in the mirror isn't going to get you there. So
I call it spiritual by parenting. It's like, if I am just positive enough, then it'll all change.
I will just will it to happen. I know, that's exactly right. And so I think I can appreciate that, because there are moments, God knows, where you're going to be like, please just, oh my gosh, make this change. So, and that's really where it landed for me. It was like, some of it was, my kids are older, they're 19 and 17. So a lot of it's in my rearview mirror at this point. So I can kind of look back and say with some certainty that there's a lot that we worry about that we don't need to worry about. There's a lot of things we can let go of that in the moment feels like you just can't. And then also I felt like there was sort of this, I guess, unbalanced kind of approach to parenting, and that mothers in particular just wanted to do everything and be everything to everyone. And it was really an unsustainable kind of role to fulfill. So I started to write on that. And the more I started to write on that, the more responses I started to get from very overwhelmed and burnt out mothers like, thank you for saying this. And I feel seen after reading this article. And that felt really good. And so I think really it's just about sharing those stories and guiding families and really helping them reframe a lot of what it means to parent. And that's why the name of my website and podcast is called The Parenting Reframe.
So there's something you said that I know from my perspective caused a lot of unnecessary turmoil. And that is this unbalanced parenting thing where I felt like I had to do all the things in order to make it work. And I have an awesome husband who I gave no responsibilities to. And not because he's not capable. I mean, he's an adult that holds down a full-time job and he's graduated from college. By God, he's capable. But there was just something in the programming that led me to believe that I had to do all these parts. And I think as we talk about motivation and parenting and just in being a mom, and sometimes we don't feel motivated as a mom. And a lot of that
Yeah.
is why, because we have this thing ingrained in us that we have to do it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like sitting here nodding my head as you're describing that because that's so many mothers, right? And exactly like you said, we have these partners who are happy to help and do what we need them to do. And then, there's resistance there too. Like, I don't want to ask for help. I shouldn't need help. I don't want to complain. I'm sorry I'm complaining, right? Like, I've sat with so many moms who start to just express their exhaustion. And it always ends with an apology for complaining. And it makes me crazy because, it isn't complaining. It's like we really need to be able to all say this out loud because otherwise what we're doing really essentially is that we're living in this chaos. We're living in what feels so exhausting and it feels like it's a lot. And instead of looking around and going, but I'm not alone, and there's comfort in that. So-and-so also feels this way. And somebody else I was speaking to the other day talked about this a little bit. And actually she made a suggestion that felt really helpful. When we don't do that, when we don't speak up enough, then we're left alone to kind of assume something's wrong with us when we feel that way. And that's not the truth. So I really, for myself, I have a 4-step process that I call PAR, and I actually coach on this when I work with families, but it just stands for pause, acknowledge, respond, reflect. And this came about in my own parenting experience. And it was as my kids were starting to get older, there was a lot of challenge for me around this idea of letting go of what I thought it was supposed to look like or how it should be or what I'm supposed to be doing and saying and looking like, and really kind of caught up in really these beliefs I held on to about what good mothering really was. And at that time, I had started going back to graduate school, and it was a really demanding program. And like you just mentioned, you're not asking your husband really, even though he's capable. Well, our roles completely switched because my husband had to really step up during that time because I was slammed. I mean, if I was not in class, I was home studying or I was doing a paper or I was presenting on something. I mean, it was a pretty demanding load for 2 years. And it was great because in some ways, my kids learned to stop coming to me as the first person and going to him. But at first that felt very hard for me, right? Yes, hallelujah is right. But in retrospect, but in that moment, I remember feeling immediate guilt.
Yes.
And I remember being like, oh my God, I remember they sent me, I was in an evening class and they sent me a picture of my husband and my kids baking brownies, stirring the brownie mix or whatever. And I should have been looking at that thinking how fun and they're baking and I'm going to go home and get to have brownies and all this good stuff.
Oh my God, I wish I was there. I should have been there to do it. I shouldn't be in class. Oh my, what type of mom?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
All of those things.
All those thoughts that are so untrue. And I think that's what your pause does, is your pause should allow moms the space to go, okay, is what I'm thinking true?
Right. So, and that's just it. So with PAR, so it's PARR, and the first step is just pausing. So let's use the brownie example, right? I get that picture. And instead of looking at it and thinking, oh, how great, I'm looking at it and I can feel my emotional state change. So right there, I just have to pause. Instead of getting completely consumed by it, I just pause and I acknowledge something feels off. Maybe I feel triggered. Maybe I feel emotional. In some cases, it's really helpful if you find yourself being a reactive parent, like yelling all the time because it just feels like it's too overwhelming. It's too much. You have too much on your plate. So for me in that moment though, it was just recognizing like, oh, that feels really odd to me. It doesn't feel good, right? Just acknowledging that trigger was pushed, right? That button was pushed. And then I responded, and I had to really sit with myself and say, like in my response, reflect really, because those are the last 2 R's of it. Like, what am I subscribing to that when I look at that picture, I can't see the joy and the beauty in it, but that my first thought goes to something lacking in me or something that I wasn't doing or something that I was missing, right? So, and in doing so and in sitting with that reflection, I started to see that, wow, there's a lot of subconscious stuff that I'm subscribing to, that I'm holding on to about what it means to parent well or to mother well. And that kind of stuff is impacting the way I'm showing up as a parent. So I write a lot on this, and I have countless stories from my own kids of where I kind of saw these patterns and I saw these subconscious beliefs were really wreaking havoc on the way I was experiencing parenthood. And once I was able to dismantle some of that, oh gosh, does it just get so much easier? Because it becomes really easy to kind of see it. It's not that it's going to go away. I always say that.
Right.
You might still feel it, but that awareness around it, it's so brief, and you kind of welcome it in and send it off just as quickly, and you're able to move on and process in a much healthier way.
That's what a lot of this season has been about, it's been about the journey of it. So I know I've said this tons of times, ladies, throughout this season of this podcast. If you have come here for life hacks, this is not the show for you. It ain't for you. Because that whole piece of pausing and acknowledging, and how it's a continuous process, and how you're not going to get it on the first time. The first time you might get all the way to responding, oh, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be responding, not reacting. And then like the next time you pick up the next thing you do, like it's not this overnight,
Yes,
copy and paste type of deal. It's this practice that you have. And I think sometimes as moms, we feel so overwhelmed that we think that by avoiding the practice, we could actually get it sooner, when actually by avoiding the practice, we're causing more overwhelm and stress.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I love that you're calling it a practice, because that is exactly what it is. It's always something you're working on and thinking about and fine-tuning and tweaking. So yes, it is a practice.
And to my mamas that are also neurodiverse like me, I had to switch my mindset from thinking that a practice meant that I wasn't getting something, because the first thing my mind went to was like, oh my God, I'm failing. I can never get this right. And so I had to switch it from, you don't learn anything overnight, that this is life. It's a part of living. And it doesn't mean that I'm failing. It just means that I'm learning and growing. And so I had to shift it from a you're wrong to a growth mindset. So if you're like that all or nothing, black or white thinking like me, and that it takes time to cultivate that and to create the space for yourself, to give yourself the grace to do it over and over and over.
Again, that's right. That's exactly right. And I love that. I love that that daily reminder is really needed.
Exactly. So I am intrigued. So you have older kids like me. Like my daughter's 21, but my son is 12. How do you suggest that moms set some realistic goals for themselves in this area?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. I think for starters, like the way I approach parenting, and if we're taking a more balanced approach to parenting, the word balance for me, if I'm thinking of it in my own life, it changes all the time. So I think what's really important is to anchor your day and to start your day every day and ask yourself, what does balance look like for me today? We're not thinking about tomorrow or next week or next month, right? We always kind of get into anticipatory stress states where we're like, oh gosh, dinner is going to be terrible tonight because I don't have A, B, and C, right? Like we do that to ourselves. But if we can just stay a little more anchored and present of like, what does feeling balanced today look like? And this is like just a quick example. So let's say your day is pretty packed and you're going to have a lot of kind of to-dos, and maybe the schedule is a little fuller than you like. Then maybe that's the day you're not cooking. And maybe that's the day that you're leaning on support for people that, are around you that can support you. And even in terms of like your husband saying like, hey, I need you to do this, or I need this to happen. Maybe we're going to bend the rules a little bit, right? We get really stuck and married to the idea that it has to look this way. It has to be this way. Bedtime has to be this time. Dinner has to be this time. And that's not necessarily going to be productive or useful every single day. So it's really about asking yourself, what do I need every day? And I've told this story on other podcasts, but this happened to me when my kids started to go to school full days. They were not doing a great job eating their lunches at lunchtime. I think this is like a very common concern that a lot of parents will express to me too. And so what was happening was they were coming home from school and there was like a lot of crabbiness, right? And a lot of arguing and constant need to snack, right? Can I have another snack? I'm still hungry. I'm still hungry. And then I was trying to push it so that we could all eat dinner as a family. And then one day I just said to my husband, you know what? I get dinner done pretty early. I'm just going to let them eat right at 4:30. I'm not going to push them to wait until 6. I'm going to let them eat. This way we're not fighting about snacks. We're not doing that whole thing. They're going to eat a good, nourishing meal. And then you and I can sit together, or maybe all 4 of us can sit together at dinner and just chat. It doesn't have to necessarily be all eating together. And so I did, and every single power struggle around snacks and eating went away. Their disposition was 1,000 times better because now they weren't sort of struggling with a low blood sugar level, but they were actually eating, and they were eating good things. They weren't just in their, in the pantry pulling out different snacks. They were sitting and eating a nourishing meal. And so their moods were better. They were doing homework in a more consistent way. And so everything shifted from that one ability for me to say, like, I'm breaking the rule here. I know the should of it is that you should eat family to get, dinner together as a family. And I'm not saying not to do that. If that works in your household, by all means, keep that going. But in my house, that's the struggle that I was running into. And the minute I shifted that, it was fantastic. And we still had close moments as a family. We still did a ton together. We sat around that table all the time. So give yourself permission to be flexible and to break the rules, but really tuning in every day and asking yourself, what does balance look like today? And then I think a reflective practice is just as important. So at the end of each week, it's really important to look back and go, what worked this week and what didn't? Sometimes you'll find like I was way overcommitted. I said yes when I should have said no. I was a little too rigid when it came to A, B, and C, right? Just kind of reflect on it without not judgment, really, just a honest reflection, just looking back at like and then what worked, right? Let's celebrate those wins. Like, gosh, bedtime was a breeze this whole week. I thank God. That was wonderful. I really love this new thing that I started to do with the kids. And that's going to help set up your next week and then the following weeks. And again, life is fluid and it changes. So we can't get super concrete in our thinking and just assuming like this is the way it's supposed to be and this is what's going to be the best outcome. We really just have to look moment to moment, day to day, and really serve the needs that are required in those moments.
You said a couple of things that I also teach as well, which is that anchored and be present. Get clear about what's going on and what really needs to go on.
Yeah.
In order for life to happen, being flexible, knowing that life is going to shift. Maybe a practice that you had no longer serves you, and being flexible to go, okay, this no longer serves us. How can I help? How can I create a way for this to work? And then reflective. That's one of the things I tell my moms all the time. That saves my soul, is to go back into my planner for the week and go, what worked?
Yeah.
What didn't work? What do I need to shift? Really because it keeps me from doing the same ish over and over again that's not working.
Yep.
It helps me to celebrate all the awesome stuff that I've done, and it keeps me from being stuck. And we're so often taught how to operate like men,
Yeah.
which is just keep going, but we can't keep going. Like, you have to know what happened so you can know where to pivot. Otherwise, you're going to keep doing the same crazy mess over and over and over again.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's one of the most powerful questions. I always say to just ask, is it working? And if it's not, that's okay, right? There's no shame in that. And there's nothing to be, it's just telling you that, hey, can you just make a quick shift here? Or what can we do differently? Or how can we show up in a new way? It isn't to make anybody feel bad, but the awareness around it rather than resisting it, and the acceptance around it is going to help you really move through it.
Oh my gosh, this has been awesome. And the lessons that you shared can be used in life. Like, I don't think we think a lot of times about the things that we use maybe in business or at work, and how some of them can translate to us creating more flow in our homes, more balance in our home life, and balance being about strength and stability and not all things equal. It doesn't mean you have to do the same thing every day at the same time, in the same way.
Right.
It just means what's going to give you in your life the most strength, stability, flow, for all that all that happy stuff, all that happy stuff.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what it does. Yes. And it's important. And I think we get so busy as parents that we stream right over that. And it's good to stop and check in and make sure that you're checking in with yourself and you're checking in with, the parts of life that feel like they're working and maybe things that aren't. And I think it's important to constantly keep reassessing. And yourself. I mean, having older kids, their needs change.
Yes.
And your needs change. Yeah, right. They still need you, but in a different way, right?
Yes.
Sometimes they need you to set a boundary. They're never going to tell you that, but sometimes that is what they need, right? Their actions are indicating it, or they might seem like they're struggling to regulate emotions. Well, now we know we've got to let them experience some emotions so that they can teach themselves how to self-regulate in a loving space, in a safe space.
Yes.
So it's important that we're constantly tuning in, and that's where the fatigue can set in for sure. But it's important that we're checking those things out.
Oh my gosh, Albiona, this was so fabulous, and this went so flipping quick. Where can they find you in these social media streets, in these internet and social media streets?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, just come and find me. I'm at the Parenting Reframe on Instagram and on TikTok. I mostly just do video content. So if you appreciated this, you'll hear a lot of just quick little videos where I give information and I try to really give value so that it's something that you can put into practice right away when you're done listening to it. And also you can come over to my website, theparentingreframe.com. I would definitely suggest getting on my email list. I write a weekly newsletter, and sometimes they're long and deep and sometimes they're short and sweet, but the whole idea is how can we parent and live a better life? And, the two go hand in hand. So I think we can't just talk about parenting without talking about how to become a better person in the process.
Oh. Yes. And you can also catch her, I think, your Fridays on Detroit Mom.
I think so. It might have just changed. But yeah, I do the parenting post where I answer one question a week on Detroit Mom. I actually just talked about ADHD a couple of weeks ago on their post. So yeah, you can check me out on Detroit Mom. I do the parenting post there. And those are also videos where I'm taking one question a week. And those are a ton of fun. I love the real questions in real time kind of a thing too. And I also host my own podcast, and it's also called The Parenting Reframe. Yes. So yeah, a lot of ways to connect for sure.
Definitely. Thank you so much again for coming. I'm happy we are finally able to connect in audio format. Mm-hmm. This was super dope. Ladies, connect with her, please. We all need parenting love. Until next time, I want you to stay weird, and we will catch you on the next episode of the We Ain't Normal show. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it freed you to see your life a bit differently. Make sure to check out those show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's episode with all the important links and resources. If you want weekly exclusive episodes with me personally, make sure to sign up for my Simplify My Life newsletter. I'd love to know what you enjoyed about this episode, so leave a review to let me know how I can continue to support you. So Mama, I want you to know, you're doing much better than you think. You're further than you believe, and you're worthy to have it all. So until next time, stay weird and keep doing you, babe. Coming up next time on the We Ain't Normal show.
The first time I experienced burnout, I didn't even know what it was. It was like my mom was burnt out when I was growing up. So was my grandmother. So this is normal until it wasn't, until it turned into depression and all of those different things. And then before we started the interview, we're chatting before this podcast interview, I got burnt out this week and I was able to recover within 2 or 3 days, whereas a couple years ago, it could have taken me 6 months.
Until next time, I want you to stay weird, and we will see you soon. Bye. Want more of this episode? Make sure your podcast notifications are on and you're a part of the We Ain't Normal family by going to thecharmedlife.show to get weekly podcast updates and notifications. I'll see you there.